At the start of the 20th century, global power was shifting toward a resource buried deep beneath the ground. Underneath Iranian soil sat one of the largest untapped reserves of oil on the planet. But the people living above those reserves saw only a fraction of the wealth. The British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company extracted massive profits through sprawling refineries, while local Iranian laborers worked in punishing conditions to keep the oil flowing. Decades of this silent frustration eventually found a unified voice in a politician named Mohammad Mossadegh. He argued that Iran's future should be determined by Iranians rather than foreign executives operating behind closed doors. In 1951, Mossadegh made his move. He announced that the Iranian government would nationalize its oil industry, stripping control entirely away from foreign corporations and reclaiming the resource for the state. While crowds celebrated in the streets of Tehran, the decision triggered an immediate global crisis. By claiming sovereignty over the nation's most valuable asset, Mossadegh disrupted an economic empire that Britain was absolutely unwilling to surrender. Instead of deploying troops, Britain launched a retaliatory economic strike. They imposed a strict global embargo on Iranian oil, cutting off the country's ability to sell a single barrel to the rest of the world. This animated line chart shows a sudden, dramatic plunge in oil export revenues, crossed by a sharply rising line representing domestic inflation. As the economy cratered, citizens faced rampant unemployment, weakening Mossadegh's government and leaving the country dangerously unstable. Watching this domestic chaos unfold, the United States abandoned its initial stance of neutrality and stepped directly into the conflict. American officials were driven by intense Cold War paranoia. They feared that a bankrupt, isolated Iran, sitting right on the Soviet border, would eventually fall under communist influence. Because of that strategic anxiety, a dispute over corporate profits escalated into a covert political war. The United States and Britain began coordinating a secret operation to intervene directly in Iranian leadership. In 1953, the CIA, working alongside British intelligence, launched Operation Ajax. Their explicit objective was to forcefully remove Prime Minister Mossadegh from power. There were no traditional battlefields. The intelligence agencies relied on propaganda and the manipulation of public opinion, and heavily orchestrated protests to spread chaos and deepen political divisions across Tehran. The stability of the government finally broke. Mossadegh was overthrown, and the West restored the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, to absolute power. Following the coup, foreign companies regained significant control over the newly organized oil industry. The resulting influx of oil revenues funded a period of rapid urban modernization, filling Iranian cities with Western brands and expanding infrastructure. But underneath that polished mid-century aesthetic, political freedom was tightly restricted. A powerful secret police force, known as Savak, monitored the population, brutally suppressing any opposition to the regime. The foreign intervention of 1953 did not erase the public's desire for self-determination. It simply trapped that frustration underground, where it gathered pressure for decades. That built-up pressure finally reached its breaking point in 1979. A massive wave of nationwide protests swept through the streets, plunging the country into a state of uncontrollable violence. Students, religious leaders, workers, and ordinary citizens formed an unstoppable coalition, united by a single demand for change. Faced with overwhelming numbers, the Shah was forced to flee the country. A new leader emerged from the uprising. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini took control, dissolving the Western-backed monarchy entirely and transforming Iran into an Islamic republic. This new government inverted the geopolitical landscape. Former allies in the West instantly became bitter adversaries, and the nation's oil was weaponized in the ensuing political standoff. Looking backward, the roots of this sweeping revolution connect directly to the events of 1951. The initial attempt to nationalize the oil industry had triggered a 28-year sequence of embargoes, foreign meddling, and domestic trauma. That 1951 effort to reclaim a single resource set off a trajectory that moved from economic isolation to the total transformation of the state. In the global struggle for control over energy, the decision to claim what is rightfully yours can carry a price that takes decades to settle.